Nation, Brendan and Franco show. We're here. We're live. Live, sort of? Well, you're watching this on AMP or YouTube. Either or is fine with us. Franco, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for skewing our regular opening. I like it. Left.
I know, I kind
Protocol.
of, I know, I usually do BFF show, but I'm like, Brendan and Franco show, I want to make it enunciate who the two people are. Maybe you don't know who we are. We don't really go into it too much. We just, for that few seconds of introduction, want to make sure people know.
I actually think we should adjust our name. I think we should keep the BFF show, but we should adjust the final F. And it should be the Brendan and Franco Family Extravaganza.
Old time family values tour.
I don't know about that. That's a little violent. But I maybe family hour, but it's a half an hour. I don't know.
It's
Something with an F.
reminiscent of 1950s television. The Brendan and Franco Family Hour, presented by Maytag.
Yeah, I'm down with that, and it kind of reflects the other shows we're on air with on the current network we're on anyway, so it's perfect.
So we're on the network still for about another. I think our contract's up in December.
Correct. The new extension is until December. I think then we will ride our horses into the sunset. Even though we've given AMP such good things as AMP Premiere.
You know, maybe we figure it out. You don't know. We can't just cut bait now.
Okay, I mean, I'm willing to work it out, I suppose. So I guess this is
I'm
our
trying to tease
treaty.
the suspense here, Franco. Work with me. Work with me here.
You're right. You're right. So this is our open letter to AMP. We're willing to work, but it has to go both ways. It can't be us pining after you. We're an award-nominated digital show. We deserve a little bit of wine and dining. Maybe
Who?
a nice email or so.
Who nominated us?
I have no idea. I don't think she's with AMP anymore. Shout out Amy Neal. Thanks for pointing that out. Anyway, back to my point. Just a little here, to and there. We're not Le'Veon Bell. We're not going to hold out, but we also don't want to be Earl Thomas and get injured on the way out either. So that's where
We're
we're
also
at.
not getting fined for not showing up, so we're still showing up, regardless of no fine or not. We're here for you, Premier AMP Premier, however you want to put it. Let's get into the NFL. Enough funny business, giggles. NFL Week 4 in the books, Franco. Some hot topics. One that I want to start with is Earl Thomas, Seahawks defensive player who had been vocal about wanting a new contract coming off, I believe, the rookie contract that he had signed. Should be afforded a large payday. Unfortunately, I believe he broke his leg.
Yeah.
And had been saying for quite some time that he would participate, but he deserves a bigger contract. And I think this was terrible, Franco. This is one of those things where I think every player should be paid what they're worth. I think in this situation, this is where the establishment or the NFL wins, quote unquote, because this is why they don't really want to invest right away in players, because there is this fear. It's a hard-hitting sport. It's a very physical sport. But at the same time, if you're a player, you should be paid for what you're valued, especially someone as important as Earl Thomas to the Seahawks right now as an organization, because they're quite frankly terrible at the moment. So this was just terrible to watch, and this was sad. I don't know. It bums me out to talk about it, Franco.
It should, and I think it highlights a couple of issues. One, minus the hand gesture, which we can come back to, this whole thing really emphasizes and underscores what he was concerned about. He didn't want to report without a long-term deal with some guaranteed money in case he got injured. Mostly because if you get injured, especially in the way he got injured, your bounce back is not guaranteed, and your next contract's going to be lessened. So even though he bit his upper lip and came back begrudgingly, and rightfully so, it bit him in the butt, and now he's going to suffer financially, and so will his family, because of the injury and how it happened. So I think that's the real highlight here. I think a lot of times we focus too much on the hand gesture. The real highlight is that Earl Thomas theoretically was right to not come back, and by making a sacrifice for whoever you want to say, the fans or his teammates, he ended up hurting his financial future and possibly his family's financial future in the process.
And this goes, this story now is tied hand in hand with Le'Veon Bell and his sitting out right now, which if I'm Le'Veon Bell, I'm using this, I'm showing this tape to the Steelers and saying this is why I'm not here. And if you want me there, start paying me or trade me, or I think he has till week 10 to show up before he invalidates the contract. So I think he's not showing up until week 10, Franco, for anything, especially in light of what happened to Earl Thomas.
I mean, it broke today that he's planning on coming back for week 7 or week 8. So
Oh, okay.
I think that will happen, but I do think this kind of underscores his issue as well. And I would be not anti-Le'Veon Bell, but much less sympathetic to Le'Veon Bell had David Johnson and Todd Gurley not got huge guaranteed contracts. I'm of the opinion that Bell is better than both of those players, particularly David Johnson, as we're seeing this year. So had those contracts not happened, then I may not be as on the side of Bell, because I think he's immature sometimes. I do think that the Earl Thomas situation, in conjunction with the contracts being handed out, really just adds justification to the actions of Bell. Could he have done it better? Absolutely. But, I mean, I think he was right to do what he did, and I think he's right to look out for himself and his family because his usage stats are through the roof in his first 7 years. What do you think? I guess.
Well, I was going to move on, but that's okay. I'll come back.
Yeah, come right back.
I think there needs to be a better system in general. I think that when you have a player of value that to any organization, I think that there needs to be some way to make it right, where if you can see right off the bat that they're talented enough and that they are powerful enough to change the course of your organization to get you more wins, it shouldn't be like pulling teeth, because the NFL makes hand over fist in money. And it's really hard when organizations, and go back to the Raiders, when they're like, we don't have the money for Khalil Mack. It's like, really? You don't? I mean, because the NFL seems to have enough money to give you carte blanche to run over to Vegas in a year or two. So it's really, that's the part of that I don't like, and it's the business part of it. And that's where it gets just, again, the family, like you mentioned, that's what I think about too, where, people can argue, and I've seen this argument online of, well, they're already millionaires, he's worried about more money. I'm like, no, man, I mean, they don't have a retirement. Some people are out of the league by 25, and then they have the rest of their lives to try to figure out what to do. And there are so many stories of athletes that are not well versed with financial management, that don't have a clear plan for what they're going to do after their professional career is over. So now's the time you make your money, and now's the time they should be paid.
I agree with you, and I think there's no easy fix to this because the salary cap exists, and it's an important measure to keep the league competitive. I do think the be-all, end-all here is to move to the baseball and basketball model to have contracts be guaranteed, period. Even if it's a rookie contract, even if he's getting paid less than he should, all of that money needs to be guaranteed, and that's how it should be moving forward. If they do that, at least there's some security, and I think you'll have less of these holdouts because at that point, there's no danger of you being cut for injury and losing all of your money. So
right.
I think that's the fix, but we can move on because it's sad. I don't want to be sad.
We'll obviously come back to this story and look at
course.
Le'Veon Bell and whether or not he really is coming back week 7 or week 8. We'll have to find out. But to happier news, we have 2 undefeated teams still, Franco, in the National Football League. And they're both in the West side of the divisions. NFC West, you have the Rams. AFC West, you have the Chiefs. 4-0. Patrick Mahomes seems to be unreal at the moment. I keep anticipating that he's going to slow down. I know it's only week 4 and we're heading into week 5, so there's plenty of time for this to go south. Especially since last year the Chiefs were the consensus pick after week 1 to go to the Super Bowl, and we saw how well that went. And now you have the Rams in the NFC West that are 4-0 that seem to not be stopping anytime soon. Sean McVay, their head coach, seems to just enjoy pushing the pedal to the metal here. And they have a lot of weapons around Jared Goff that he can utilize and play with. So of these 2 teams, Franco, which one impressed you the most this past week?
I think the team I'm most impressed with is the Rams. I think that was a very real win against a great Vikings defense. I think the Chiefs are good, but I'm not necessarily sold. If you remember last year, Deshaun Watson went crazy for 7 games. Got injured, unfortunately, but then we've seen him kind of return to earth now that there's tape on him. I think we saw the start of teams learning how to play against Mahomes with the Broncos. the Chiefs were not electric on offense. They were effective but not electric. And I think as more teams get tape, the more limited he will be. Unfortunately for the rest of the league, they have Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee that they won't still win. I just don't think Mahomes will keep up this historic pace.
I think Mahomes is the most entertaining if you're going quarterback comparison. I think that a couple of a shovel pass with his non-dominant arm was entertaining to watch. I think that that's a team that is excited, but as you mentioned, they have way more weapons than we're talking about at the moment, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Whereas the Rams just seem like at this point, they do have a few injuries on the defensive side and their cornerbacks, but at this point they seem just like a well-oiled machine where they go in with a game plan, they execute said game plan, and they just win, and they win efficiently and effectively. So far they haven't really been challenged yet, so I think that's going to be interesting. They do have a couple of interesting games that are later on in the season in winter weather, so I think I believe they are, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, they might be at Buffalo or something like that, where they're at some cold weather team where I'm like, oh, that might be really interesting to see if they continue their pace. So it's exciting, though, because we do get to see the Rams and the Chiefs later on this season, and if both end up being undefeated at that time, I don't think at the moment it's an NBC night game, but we might have a flex to that, as this would definitely be the marquee game of the week if that were to take shape.
No, I totally agree with you. And on other news, last week, I think we both decreed that the Patriots were not dead. So I think we both get a gold star for being absolutely right, because the reports of their demise were greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, well, and I think, speaking of the Patriots, it was a classic sort of here comes Miami into Patriots territory, and then the Patriots just effectively run through them, literally, with Sonny Michel sort of taking flight. Franco, you have him on your fantasy league. I checked. I double-checked. I thought if he was on the waiver wire, I'd pick him up, but that's sadly not going to happen. I'm rolling with my motley crew of running backs, who at any moment could be backups. But it's exciting. But going back to the main point at hand with the Patriots, again, I think things settle out at Franco. I think you can agree that 5, 6, 7, those are the weeks where we kind of finally get to some semblance of normalcy in the NFL, where things start to make sense and there's a pattern that develops. The good teams start shaking free of the bad teams, and then we get some idea of what this will look like in the future.
No, I totally agree, and I like that you use the word semblance in a sentence. It's a $5 word. Great job. So gold star again. We're just handing out gold stars left and right. You can tell that I have a degree in teaching.
Yes, you do.
There you go. I think another interesting point is we look at the bottom of the league. Did we learn anything with the Raiders and the Browns? Honestly.
No.
I don't know what we should take away from that game, but I don't know if I learned anything other than Baker Mayfield can play football, and occasionally John Gruden gets lucky.
I think a lot of luck was involved in that, especially during overtime. But I that was one of those who wants it least. It was just like who wants the win. I think both teams should have just tied. That would have been hilarious for the Browns to tie again. The Raiders they're the Raiders at this point. They're reverting back to old habits, so I would be completely fine with that tie. It would be a success in my mind. But they got the win, and I don't know. But the Browns are entertaining, Franco. I like watching them. I think there's still a lot of talent on that team. They're unpredictable. If they're always just so close to wins. Where I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast, and he made a good point of they could be 4-0 if they hadn't shot themselves in the foot a bunch of times throughout the first 4 games, or who knows, make better coaching decisions. But I think they're an entertaining team to watch. I want to keep watching them, but unfortunately I don't have League Pass, so unless we get sponsored by the NFL. So if you're listening to NFL, please sponsor us so I can watch more of your games.
Yeah, they are a fascinating team. They are a very young team. I still think if we're going to take a hot take here, Hugh Jackson's a better coach than Gruden, bottom line. But I think we will see the Browns. They kind of feel like the LA Chargers to me last season, where they were 0-3 and then came back and almost made the playoffs. I think we see that with the Browns. I'm not sold that they're bad yet. I am sold that the Raiders are the worst team in the league. Period.
That's fair. I'm not arguing with you on that one. I also think we can safely say that kickers have been really bizarrely terrible. And I think that it has been an epidemic where even good kickers are missing unless your name is Vinatieri, then you're
Yep.
not really. There's no. That's where the peak is, and everyone else after Vinatieri falls off. Maybe Gostowski, maybe, but again, I think it's just weird, Franco. I don't know what's going on, and teams are constantly switching out kickers. I mean, the Cowboys waived Dan Bailey and then had a ton of trouble. Vikings picked him up, but it's weird, and I think this is one of those positions that when everything is going right, you don't talk about it because the kickers aren't always the most exciting aspect of an NFL game unless it's coming down to the wire and it's a game-winning field goal. So when they're bad, it's really bad because it's very noticeable. So I don't know. Do you have any explanation as to what's going on?
I mean, first, you can't sleep on Robbie Gould from San Francisco, who has one of the longest streaks going, but I mean, we are a show that's aired in the Bay Area, buddy.
That's
well, for the time being. Wink.
Cool.
That was like a double wink. But alright, I think the point is, I don't know what's going on. I think it's fascinating, and I think we've undervalued kickers. We all laughed when Tampa Bay took one with the second round. I mean, that was just an unmitigated disaster for that young man anyway. But maybe their mind was not in the wrong spot. I think a good kicker is worth their weight. Had the Browns had a good kicker, they'd be a winning team right now. So maybe this leads to a renaissance of kickers being taken seriously and getting better contracts. Just kidding, not going to happen. But
No.
maybe at least we'll see some more draft picks taken. Even Sebastian Janikowski missed kicks for the Seahawks. So I think maybe it's just a weird trend or coincidence, kind of like ties happening twice in a row by 2 weeks. I think it'll normalize just like most things in weeks 4 through 7.
You want to talk about Isaiah Crowell?
Sure.
You
Let's talk-
take this one.
In a nutshell, Jets running back Isaiah Crowell, who's on the Jets, so doesn't have a lot to celebrate, but ran for a touchdown and used the ball in a manner that resembled toilet paper.
Gross.
Whoops. It's actually the same basic celebration that Doug Baldwin got nailed for, I forget how many Super Bowls ago, whenever the Seahawks were last in the Super Bowl. But the end result is he got paid $13,000, making that football the most expensive piece of toilet paper ever. Todd Bowles was up in arms and very upset with Isaiah Crowell and made it the focus of his end game presser, which I think is insane, as opposed to focusing on how his team deserves to be treated with toilet paper at some point. But on the plus side, there's a happy end to this story. Isaiah Crowell got a sponsorship deal with a toilet paper company. So
That's awesome.
good on you, Isaiah. Don't wipe your butt with the football again, but I'm happy all's well that ends well.
All right, let's move over to Major League Baseball, Franco. It is the postseason. It is upon us. Yesterday, we had our couple of playing games, the Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers moving on. And now Milwaukee is fighting along with the Rockies to... Wait, now I'm confused. No, the
You got it backwards.
Cubs.
The
I have it
Cubs and
backwards.
Rockies are playing today. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So that game is going on now. Colorado is leading the Chicago Cubs, top of the 7th. Right now, we're looking at an A's New York Yankees playing game tomorrow night. And then we already have Cleveland is in, Houston is in, and Boston on the AL side. And we have Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Los Angeles waiting. Franco, are you? Give me some hot takes, if you will, or what are you looking forward to the most in this postseason? And do you have? And let's make an early World Series prediction, not winner, but World Series. Who makes it through the playoffs?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Well, first, my hot take is that this is the only baseball season that really matters. Because the season's... And I love baseball, and I like it
Yeah.
live, but I can't watch it on TV. So this is the only TV baseball I will watch for the year, so I'm excited
Same.
about that part of it. I don't know how you feel, being a Dodgers fan, but...
Well, no, I mean, I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan, so I think that
Okay.
the season ended for me about 3.5 months ago. So
Fair enough.
I didn't have anything to really watch. So by default, where I live, it's fun to watch what's going on with the Dodgers, listen to them on my ride home. So that part's exciting. I might even partake in going to a game to see them. But I think that for me, I agree with you. This is the most fun baseball to watch on TV.
Yeah, so one thing we'll approach is this whole Cubs-Rockies thing. I hope the Rockies win because I think it's ludicrous, the competitive advantage that the Cubs were handed by having them play And I understand it's geography and the way the rules are kind of set up, but at some point common sense has to enter the equation.
Yeah.
So they played a game, they're out by what? Like, they maybe got into Chicago at 4 a.m. this morning to play this game tonight. That's a bad beat because both teams both lost in their playing games. So the league did the Rockies a disservice, and I hope the Rockies are able to triumph in it. My too early prediction for the World Series is Brewers versus the Astros, with the Astros winning in 6. I know I gave you more than you asked for, but I don't play around. So that's where I'm at. I think the Brewers are having a season that is very reminiscent of the Giants seasons in the mid-2000s when we had our nice every other year winning streak, and I think they have the magic right now. So, and plus, they had probably the greatest beer celebration ever after that win yesterday. So I'm going to make my decision based on the quality of the beer celebration. The Dodgers, meh. Brewers, yes. So Brewers go to the World Series.
I think for me in the AL, it's hard really to say no to Boston given their dominance. So they're going to move on to the World Series for me. I like Houston Astros a lot. I just don't know. They've had some injuries earlier this year. I know, and I think that their pitching is better. I think their starting pitching is okay. On the National League side, I'm going to go with you for Milwaukee as well. I think the Dodgers, while they just barely made it. In all honesty, when you get to see as much of their games as you do out here, just barely making it. I think Atlanta is a little bit too young. They've got a lot of great young players, but I think this is a good time for them to get through the postseason a little bit. I don't know if they're seasoned up, but I like Milwaukee. I think it's going to be Milwaukee, Boston. I know it's kind of lame because it's 2 number 1 seeds, but I think that'd be an exciting World Series.
I feel you, and I agree with you on the Dodgers end because there are things you can trust recently in the fall. One is that there will be Uggs and leggings. 2 is that there will be pumpkin spice, literally everything, including doggy poop pickup bags. And 3, the Dodgers will choke in the playoffs. So yeah. I have faith. That's where we're going. Taxes, death, and Dodgers bad baseball.
To be fair, they made it to Game 7 and made terrible decisions in Game 7 last year. Very bad starting pitching decisions. Let's do a little bit of comic book corner.
I like
that's not really
corner
a segment.
idea.
That's not really a segment we have, but I'm making it up. But I wanted to bring it up because I think that there is a major storyline that's going on. Heroes in Crisis #1, written by Tom King, came out last week. It is another big DC event. Mm-hmm. And the main storyline is that they haven't really gotten too deep into what this facility is, but the idea is that Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman built a facility to deal with the mental health crisis that any superhero might be going through, and PTSD, and to work with them and get them mentally healthy. So it has aspects of each of the 3. I think it's Superman's optimism, Wonder Woman's virtue, and Batman's diligence, or something like that. And it's imparted onto a sophisticated AI system. So the story starts with Booster Gold and Harley Quinn fighting each other. Come to find out, while this is happening, there's been murders at this sanctuary that's supposed to be a safe space. And the 2 people of note that were murdered were Arsenal, one of your fan favorites, and Wally West. So it seems like there's a conflict, and the main story through line will be how do heroes deal with their own personal crises that come up, and then second, the mental health aspects of being a hero, because it sounds like we'll have Harley Quinn and Booster Gold as the 2 suspects, and neither one are the most reliable, especially Booster Gold, who, and correct me if I'm wrong, Franco, but I don't recall him being written as so schizophrenic / bipolar as Tom King's take has been, especially in the Batman comics. It started that way, and then he seemed to slowly lose his mind or become more wrapped up in what was going on. I can unpack that later if you want, but yeah. I think now they're dealing with the repercussions of his appearance in Batman, and it's sort of a surprising take. But I know you haven't read it yet, but when I told you who died, I know you were upset.
I was upset, and first we have to give our non-nerds basic information. Wally West is Flash #2.
Thank you.
And Arsenal is formerly known as Red Arrow, who's also formerly known as, well, Red Arrow. But he was the sidekick to Green Arrow, whose character has been abused throughout the decades here, from being replaced by a clone to having a heroin addiction and losing an arm to becoming a white trash savant, like mechanical expert, to his current incarnation, which apparently is dead. So I think to take a character that has one of the more significant storylines ever, featuring an actual heroin addiction on the comic book, and killing them off unceremoniously for what seems like the benefit of a comic book rating is kind of gross. But then again, it's DC Comics, and that's why we have Harley Quinn as a main character, because it sells costumes and Bad Daddy's Little Monster Secret t-shirt things. So that's where we're at. I mean, I'm of the opinion, you can decide on this for me or not. I think Marvel's winning the battle of the movies, whereas DC is winning the battle of at least having interesting comic loops. And I'm excited for this, but I'm nervous because I don't know how well they're going to handle it, because the comics are not known for their forward-thinking mentality with a lot of different issues.
Yeah, there's also there's some politics involved because there's a new editorial department at DC. So 2016's Rebirth #1 was more about optimism, whereas this seems to be very pessimistic. And then you couple that with Doomsday Clock, which, according to DC, Heroes in Crisis takes place in the present of what's going on in the world of DC, where Doomsday Clock takes place in the near future of the DC universe. And that is a very dark take, and that includes the Watchmen universe, which we don't have time to unpack. But essentially, the themes and the tones of both of these books was surprising to me, because both are very depressing and very dark, because they're dealing not with what Marvel's been doing in their comics, where it's sort of bombastic, Steve Rogers was inhabited by time travel Nazis, and now he's this, like, that's sort of this outlandish, crazy stories that they've been doing. DC's doing more personal, like, oh no, we legitimately murdered your favorite characters, and we're going to show you Superman emotionally breaking down in this #1 issue, and Batman dealing with his rage, and it's like, oh, this is a whole nother world. More interesting to me as an adult, but I think that if I was reading this when I was 12, I don't know if I would really enjoy these books. So I think it's interesting. The Marvel still seems set on making their books accessible to as many ages as possible, and DC seems to say, give up the ghosts of the past and say our readers have matured, so therefore we're going to mature. So it's interesting. I like both stories. They have their faults. Maybe at a future episode we can break down Doomsday Clock and Heroes in Crisis a little bit more, but it is an interesting shift, and I think you're right, Franco. Marvel's definitely winning the movie race, but DC is making way more interesting choices when it comes to their comic books. Franco, what did you learn today?
I learned that we are theoretically free agents to any TV agency that wants to pick us up, or our former or current home and Premiere, and also that DC thinks that they're still producing Vertical Comics. Yep. Brendan, what did you learn today?
I learned that it was really awkward as I recounted the story of seeing the panel of Superman cry to see Superman cry. And DC, I didn't like it. Superman shouldn't cry. He should always smile, that handsome smile of his. For the BFF show, my name is Brendan.
I'm Franco.
Bye!